First up, investors are taking the latest developments in Ukraine in their stride for the time being.
Yes, indeed. Global stocks, they've been trading higher after a speech by Russia's President Vladimir Putin. He outlined why he believes that Russia's annexation of Crimea isn't illegal. He also said that Russia would not seize more of Ukraine, which eased market concerns of an escalation of the Ukraine crisis. Let's take a look at how the American markets shut up shop on Tuesday. They closed to around about a quarter an hour ago in positive territory. It followed not just Putin's speech, but also encouraging signs on the state of the U.S. housing market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.5% to the Nasdaq, was up even more than that, up 1.25%. The European markets too closed higher on the back of Putin's comments. Germany's DAX index was higher at the end of the trading day, 0.7%. This even as a reading of German economic sentiment plunged on fears of the economic fallout from the Ukraine crisis. Now, let's stick with that crisis. Despite international protests, Russia is now calling Crimea a part of its territory. Western powers say that they're willing to take fresh steps to punish the Kremlin economically. But the annexation of Crimea could cost the Russian economy in another way. There are warnings that Moscow would have to pay billions each year to support the region. Claire Murphy has more.
Yalta, known as the Jewel of Crimea. But is this historic resort representative of the grand prize or the heavy burden that the region now represents to Moscow's coffers? Tourism is the lifeblood of the Crimean economy, but 3/4 of annual visitors are Ukrainian, who are now likely to make alternative plans.
This year, I think there won't be too many tourists. But nonetheless, I hope the authorities will try to ensure that some will come, because for Crimea, tourism is like food. Crimea lives off tourists.
On the surface, Crimea may appear prosperous, but its 2 million strong population depends on Ukraine for almost all of its electricity, drinking water and food. This will now have to be paid for.
70% of Crimean budget came from Kyiv, so even higher share will have to come from Russia, because Crimea is losing now its tourist industry, getting more problems. So it's another subsidized region for Russian state budget.
Already the income differential is clear. The monthly wage in a neighbouring Russian region is more than twice that brought home by Crimeans. Economists say adding the peninsula to the Russian map could cost anywhere from $1 to $3 billion a year.
And if we stay with this story, there's been a slew of protests in reaction to the annexation of Crimea by Russia. Britain has suspended its military cooperation with Russia and also arms exports. Here in France, the Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius has also threatened to cancel the delivery of 2 warships. France struck a €1.2 billion military deal with Russia back in 2011. The cancellation of the delivery could endanger around 1,000 jobs in a French shipyard, and Fabius said that France would only cancel the contract if other European countries also take action and raise further sanctions. Let's talk you through a few other stories that we're watching for you. General Motors has named a new global director to be in charge of safety and vehicle recalls. The creation of the new job comes as GM is grappling with a growing recall scandal. The car giant stands accused of taking too long before recalling 1.6 million vehicles for a defective ignition switch last month. It's been linked to 12 deaths. GM's chief executive, Mary Barra, apologized this Tuesday for the loss of life. And after planes and trains, automobiles is next for the French businessman Louis Gallois. The board of carmaker Peugeot Citroën has picked him to be its new chairman. That's according to sources close to the matter. Gallois used to be in charge of the state-owned railway company SNCF here in France and also the aerospace giant EADS. He's stepping in as Peugeot Citroën is still struggling with profitability after a €2.3 billion loss last year. And music streaming services had a stellar 2013, with their annual sales topping $1 billion for the first time. The likes of Spotify and Deezer saw revenues grow by 51% last year to $1.1 billion. Music streaming services provide songs for a monthly subscription fee. The figures come from the International Federation of Phonographic Industry. For the music industry as a whole, though, sales they were down almost 4% to $15 billion. So some bittersweet news there for the music industry, Laura.
Marcus, thanks very much indeed. Marcus Carson there with the business news. Well, no need to browse the internet for hours. We've rounded up all the best bits of the past 24 hours. It's time for web news.